Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have another great show for you tonight. Next to me is Mr. John Cornett. He's pulling double duty tonight, both as co-host and providing musical accompaniment. Thank you, John.
Oh, you're welcome.
We have a number of hemp videos for you about various things, and we'll be taking your phone calls. If you have any questions about ending adult marijuana prohibition, restoring industrial hemp, or medical marijuana, you can call us at 503-288-4448. That's it, 244-4448. Okay, so with that aside, we have some hemp news coming soon, but first we'll bring on our infamous dancing cannabis leaves.
I feel the force.
Our first story is from the mother continent, from Africa, from Johannesburg, South Africa. The nation's highest court in South Africa has upheld a 2017 decision finding that the use of marijuana by adults in private is constitutionally protected behavior. The judges unanimously ruled that privacy protections encompass an adult's right to possess and grow cannabis in a private space. It is not, quote, a criminal offense for any adult to use or be in possession of cannabis in private for his or her personal consumption, end quote. The South African court determined public cannabis use and marijuana sales remain prohibited under the ruling. South African politicians first outlawed marijuana in 1908. Annually, some 13% of all arrests in South Africa are for marijuana-related offenses. Next story is from Washington, D.C. A top official from the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol has affirmed that the agency will enforce a federal policy prohibiting those involved with the Canadian marijuana industry from entering the United States. Section 212 of the U.S. Immigration and Nationality Act states that foreigners are ineligible to enter the U.S. if they are, quote, determined to be a drug abuser, end quote, or if they have assisted in trafficking of an illicit substance. A U.S. Customs representative told Politico that the agency is broadly interpreting the statute to include those who work or have financially invested in Canada's legal marijuana industry or who acknowledge personal use of the substance. Canada legalized the regulated production and distribution of medical cannabis nearly 2 decades ago. In June of this year, Canadian lawmakers gave final approval to separate legislation regulating the adult use market. The new law legalizing and regulating cannabis takes effect on October 17th, less than a month away. This is an irrational and discriminatory policy by the U.S. Customs and Immigration Bureau that unduly penalizes tens of thousands of Canadians who pose no health or safety risk to the United States. At a time when public opinion and the culture surrounding marijuana is rapidly shifting, not just in the United States but around the world, it's inane for the U.S. border officials to maintain such a draconian and backward-looking policy. I personally was blocked from going into Canada, even though I'd been there many times. My wife is a dual Canadian-American citizen. I was going up to talk to lawyers about the takeover of my corporate business by some Vancouver, Canada businesses. I was treated so rudely. I've never actually been treated this rudely. For about 3 hours, they kept saying I'm a career criminal because back in 1992, I was arrested for marijuana, and in 1986. So those two arrests 25, 35 years ago made me a career criminal, according to the Canadian border officials that wouldn't let me go talk to a lawyer. I think the Israeli-Canadian oil company that's taken over our business, that's got a court order to turn this around on us here. That is, they had some pull with those Canadian officials. But it's been a long time policy of the United States not to let in people with marijuana convictions. It's wrong. It needs to end. Also out of Washington, D.C., members of the U.S. House Judiciary Committee last week voted in favor of legislation, House Resolution 5634, the Medical Cannabis Research Act of 2018, to facilitate FDA-approved clinical trials involving whole plant cannabis. The act mandates the federal government to license multiple providers of research-grade marijuana, among other changes. The vote marks the first time that lawmakers have ever decided in favor of easing existing federal restrictions, which limit investigators' ability to clinically study marijuana in a manner similar to other controlled substances. To date, only one farm owned by the University of Mississippi has been allowed to cultivate research-grade cannabis, and it's substandard cannabis. It's worse than the old Mexican stuff. They still send it to L.V. Masika and Irv Rosenfeld, the two remaining patients that get marijuana under the INDA program that was ended by George Bush back in 1989. The measure now awaits further action on the U.S. floor. Under current U.S. policies, investigators can only administer cannabis provided by the University of Mississippi during the course of an FDA-approved trial. However, many of those familiar with their product have criticized its quality, opining that it possesses subpar potency, is often poorly manicured, and that it does not accurately reflect the wide variety of cannabis products and strains available to consumers. In 2016, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration amended its regulations to permit additional applicants to seek federal licensure to grow marijuana for use in clinical research. However, to date, neither the DEA nor the Justice Department have taken action on over 24 pending applications. Passage of H.R. 5634 would mandate federal agencies approve at least 2 new applicants within a year's time. This week, clinical investigators with the Center for Medicinal Cannabis Research at the University of California, San Diego, received federal permission to import cannabis products manufactured in Canada for use in human trials. The products, which are high in cannabidiol or CBD and low in THC or tetrahydrocannabinol, are unavailable from the University of Mississippi program, which currently provides only 6 distinct cannabis strains, none of which contain more than 0.08% CBD. So contact your legislators and tell them to support this H.R. 5635, please. From London, England, cannabidiol administration is associated with changes in brain activity that potentially lower subjects' risk for psychotic episodes, according to clinical trial data published in the Journal of the American Medical Association Psychiatry. Researchers from the United Kingdom and the Netherlands assessed the brain activating effects of a single dose of 600 milligrams of CBD in subjects at high risk for psychosis. The investigators reported, quote, cannabidiol may partially normalize alterations in parahippocampal, striatal, and midbrain function associated with clinical high risk of psychosis as a state, or CHR. As these regions are critical to the pathophysiology of psychosis, the influence of CBD at these sites could underlie its therapeutic effects on psychotic symptoms, end quote. Clinical trial data has previously reported that the daily adjunctive administration of CBD mitigates psychotic symptoms in patients with schizophrenia. The study, the effect of cannabidiol on medial temporal midbrain and striatal dysfunction in people at clinical high risk of psychosis, appears in this month's edition of the Journal of the American Medical Association Psychiatry. From right here in River City, Portland, Oregon, health professionals support the legalization of marijuana for both medical and recreational use, according to data compiled by Medscape. 82% of nurses, 82% of psychologists, 71% of pharmacists, and 67% of physicians agreed with the statement, quote, medical marijuana should be legalized nationally, end quote. Majorities in each profession also endorsed legalizing the adult use of marijuana. A 2014 poll by WebMD, Medscape, of 1,544 physicians previously reported that 67% of doctors believe that the plant should be a legal option for patients. The results of a 2013 survey conducted by the New England Journal of Medicine reported that 76% of physician respondents supported the use of cannabis for medical purposes. Our next story is from Santa Fe, New Mexico. New Mexico's Health Secretary Lynn Gallagher has agreed to propose changes in the state's medical cannabis law that would permit patients with obstructive sleep apnea to access marijuana, but she rejected calls to expand access to patients with other debilitating conditions, including Tourette syndrome and opioid dependency. Secretary Gallagher opined in a signed decision, quote, "I cannot say with any degree of confidence that the use of cannabis for the treatment of opioid dependency and its symptoms would be either safe or effective," end quote. She also rejected recommendations to permit the use of cannabis for the treatment of eczema, muscular dystrophy, psoriasis, or Tourette syndrome. A number of cases, reports, and clinical trials report that THC can mitigate symptoms of Tourette syndrome. Cannabis use has also been associated with improved outcomes in opioid-dependent subjects undergoing outpatient treatment. Among chronic pain patients enrolled in medical cannabis programs, the use of opioids typically is reduced or eliminated over a short period of time. Our next story is from San Francisco, California. Approximately 1 in 7 adults having consumed cannabis within the past year, according to data published in the Annals of Internal Medicine. A team of investigators from the University of California and Columbia University in New York assessed cannabis use patterns in nationally representative samples of 16,280 U.S. adults. Overall, 14.6% of the respondents said that they had used marijuana within the past 12 months. The respondents were most likely to have consumed cannabis via smoking, and use rates were higher among those residing in jurisdictions where adult use is legally regulated. Over 80% of respondents perceived the plant to possess various therapeutic benefits, such as pain relief or from stress and depression. Separate demographic data published in the Journal of Drug and Alcohol Dependence reports that self-reported marijuana use by older Americans is also increasing. New York University researchers analyzed use patterns in a cohort of 17,608 patients aged 50 and older. The authors reported that an estimated 9% of those between the ages of 50 and 64 consumed cannabis within the past year, while 3% of those 65 and older acknowledged doing so. Prior demographic data published earlier this year similarly reported that cannabis use is increasing among older Americans, many of whom are using it as a substitute for prescription pain medications. You can see why the pharmacy industry doesn't want this, but we need to get off of a lot of those pharmaceutical, addictive, dangerous drugs and use cannabis instead. Out of Dallas, Texas, you may have heard about a Dallas police officer entering the home of a neighbor, then shooting and killing the young black man. After the murder of Botham Jean by Dallas police officer Amber Geiger in his own home, some, but not all, of the search warrants that were executed were released to the public record. One of which, that was released the same day as Botham Jean's funeral, listed a small amount of marijuana among the items found in Jean's apartment. Cannabis is used as the reason to kill us? The release of a Dallas police affidavit into the public record regarding marijuana found in Botham Jean's apartment is nothing more than an attempt by law enforcement and the media to posthumously criminalize and cast aspersion on a man who by all accounts is guilty of nothing other than sitting quietly in his own apartment. Over half of all Americans have consumed cannabis at some point in their lives, and to pretend in any way that the possession of a plant that is objectively safer than alcohol or tobacco provides legitimacy to his extrajudicial execution is disgusting and egregious. Whether or not the victim possessed marijuana is irrelevant to the case and a sad attempt to slander an otherwise innocent person. Botham Jean and his family need and deserve justice, not a pathetic attempt at a smear campaign. That's my opinion. That's the end of our Hemp News segment for tonight. John Cornette's ready to play his guitar.
Yes, sir, I am. And you know, Paul, this is a great song to play in the wake of that news because, you know, unless we get together amongst ourselves and get out there and fight the good fight, then we're going to see more of that. But we can see it go the other way if we just come together, because, you know, there are a lot of us, and there are not that many of them. This song talks about that. We are many, we are strong. Can so many be so wrong? We're giving in to too many lies. Doesn't anybody really care why? Can it be that we are right? Can we be peaceful through this fight? All we really want to see is humanity set free. We're just one big family. Once united, we are free. Now's the time to make a stand. Do the best that each one can. Once awakened, we will see the potential of infinity. In abundance will be the norm when we are finally through this storm. That's right. We're just one big family. Once united, we are free. Now's the time to make a stand. Do the best that each one can. Yeah. Can it be that we are right? Can we be peaceful through this fight? All we really want to see is humanity set free. That's right. We're just one big family. Once united, we are free. Now's the time to make a stand and do the best that each one can. Call your Congress and your Senate and tell them to get off their butts and get out of our medical treatment. Our doctors and us can handle that. Please. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John. That's what we like. Some honest opinions here. We are taking your phone call tonight. If you have a question for us, you can call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. And we got our first caller. Our calls have been down a little bit lately. Cable television isn't quite as popular as it used to be, but we are streaming on our Facebook page at facebook.com/restorehemp. So you can tell anybody in the world that they want to tune in here on Friday night. Go to facebook.com/restorehemp. Hey, welcome to the show, caller.
Hey, thank you very much, Paul.
You're welcome.
What I'm calling in for is to remind everybody that cannabis is not just about medicine or recreation. We wouldn't have all of the drugs that are in our fish and our foods. They wouldn't be there if we were using cannabis instead of chemicals.
Yeah.
And all of the microfiber plastics that are even in the fish and animals. I mean, it breaks down and it never goes away. And if that was made out of cannabis oil instead of petroleum oil, we wouldn't have that problem either.
That's right.
So
it is recycled.
There's a lot of reasons to get behind cannabis and away from big pharma.
Well, you know, those are the reasons back in the 70s when I first became a cannabis activist when I was a teenager. It was seeing that there were so many other societal harms caused by marijuana prohibition, one of them being the suppression of political dissent. They were using marijuana as an excuse to execute and imprison many people that were political activists, just like this man in Dallas who was assassinated by a police officer who walked into the wrong apartment. They use it as an excuse to achieve political and social goals. And so, hemp plastic today is cheaper than petroleum plastic to manufacture right now, even in the small quantities that we can cultivate using low THC hemp. High THC hemp produces about 20 times more oil and protein than low THC hemp. But even given low THC hemp with 1/20th of the production capacity of high THC cannabis, even capacity for fuel, oil, and protein, and about half as much fiber production as high THC cannabis, that even with that, it's cheaper to make hemp plastic today. But there's not that much hemp oil that's available on the market, so we're trying to ramp up that production.
Well, there sure is in the dispensaries you go to. They've all got it for sale.
Yeah, but I'm talking about as a fuel or a plastic making commodity.
Well, that's because they've got the low THC standards on the hemp they're growing.
Exactly.
If they increase the standards, and just like anything else, if you breed it to its maximum potential and use it for its benefit, everybody gains.
Yeah, well, that's why we've had this here for many years, our hemp flame of freedom. This is a hemp oil wick. This is next week's wick right here. This is a little thing of hemp seed oil. This is hemp fiber. This is hemp fiber made into hempcrete, which is stronger than concrete and much more environmentally friendly, along with a little hemp stem there. So we've been advocating that for a long time. In fact, if you go to the Great Book of Hemp, which was published in 1995, it lists my companies here in Portland, Oregon, Tree Free Eco Paper and Rope Walk Paper and Fiber Corporations, as the first hemp companies in America for several generations. And I did hemp as a business up until 1997.
Paul, do you think there's still any confusion out there about the fact that this here is actually a product of the hemp seed?
Yeah,
and
doesn't have CBD or THC.
Right, and the cannabis,
but it's still being sold as a CBD.
Cannabis oil, of which people go confused, that's a different item altogether. That is the resins off the flower, and this right here is the oil from the seed. This you cannot smoke, of course, and you probably would not do well if you mix it with your cannabis oil, which is a crystalline-based structure that actually has trichomes and not oil. This right here is in direct competition with the petrochemical companies. And that's why they want to shut us down, because we're talking too much about how this can replace their cash cow, which is oil. This will replace that. And it can go in cars, it can go in trucks and run your farm equipment, it can heat your house, just a host of different things. Whereas the other stuff just...
Any diesel engine will run on hemp seed oil with no conversion to the diesel engine. And the first diesel engines were invented to run on hemp and other vegetable oils.
I just want to make sure that people who are coming into this game rather late, or they've been shrouded in a cloud of mystery because of the stereotypes around cannabis and cannabis users, or advocates, and they have not done anything to educate themselves, and therefore they listen to the first one who comes along and has any authority about they know what they're talking about, and they've got documentation to prove it. So,
well, I really
Go
believe that the future of business is actually coming to cannabis. It just takes time for everything to start rolling.
Yeah.
But eventually, the big players with the big money will do what they've always done. They'll squeeze the little people out of it. They'll maximize it, because the profit will all go in the owner's pockets, not the workers.
Well, that's why we have to turn this around. An Israeli energy company, Adira Energy, that's spelled A-D-I-R-A. If you look up Adira Energy, it will pop up and say Energy for Israel. But they got a court order that even though I'm the president of THCF and the Hemp and Cannabis Foundation, I cannot represent that I represent THCF. And so they got an order that I have to turn this around. This Israeli-Canadian oil company has spent over $2 million to steal everything in my life. They even claim they own my name.
Well, the worst thing, Paul, is they took your money, so you cannot properly defend yourself in court today. Right. And we're sitting here sweating about whether or not we're going to be able to
pay our rent, pay our electric bill, pay our water bill.
That is an egregious injustice that is going to be dealt with. We wish
We have a trial coming up in March of next year. It's a long, complex story. I won't focus on it anymore right now. But it's the petrochemical, pharmaceutical, military, industrial, transnational, corporate elite, fascist sons of a bitches that have prohibited marijuana, prohibited hemp, all for their own economic benefit. And that's why I am being attacked by this Israeli-Canadian oil company. They claim in court that they've paid me. They didn't pay me anything. They forged documents. They got a corrupt judge to rule in their favor. You know, the judge that ruled in their favor and gave them this preliminary injunction, Judge Matarazzo here in Multnomah County, Portland, Oregon, the district attorney of Multnomah County said that that judge is corrupt in the newspaper and on TV about 15 months ago. So according to the DA of Portland, Oregon, the judge who gave them my company is corrupt, but I still have to suffer the consequences.
And it's all because you do not have the legal representation, and they have an army of attorneys, just like the OLCC has.
Yeah.
We went to a meeting, by the way, 2 days ago.
Let's go into that in just a second.
Yeah,
Well, let's stay on hemp for just a second.
I'm sorry.
So is there anything else you want to say in closing, sir?
No, sir. I just also wanted to thank you all for being there to help educate the people, because that's the only way we're going to change things, is to change the rhetoric that's going out against cannabis and to let people know what's really going on and what good it is. I mean, it was the first thing we ever planted and cultivated and used for food ever.
Over 12,000 years, maybe over 25,000 years. It's the oldest crop and the most productive crop for fuel, fiber, food, medicine, and more.
It's obvious.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for calling. If you're out there and you have a question for us, call us at 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. We'll be taking phone calls right up to the top of the hour. So I had 2 hours of patients scheduled going out for more than a month on Wednesday morning or Thursday morning, yesterday morning during the OLCC hearing.
Plenty of us there.
So we called a lot of people in there, and I've seen some video, but I know you were there and you spoke at this OLCC meeting talking about they had limited the amount of marijuana that an Oregon medical marijuana card holder can purchase from a store from 24 ounces, which it had been since we passed the initiative back in 1998, to 1 ounce. And even though Oregon voters voted that when we approved ballot measure 91 to legalize adult use of cannabis, they voted in that vote, we said medical marijuana laws would not be changed. But the OLCC has disregarded that and taken it on themselves, saying that they are responding to the federal government. Well, you know.
No, they're responding. Actually, what they're responding to is a statistical evaluation done by one or more members of the OLCC with a lot of attorneys and researchers and manpower behind them to go in and research out every single case, every instance of a cell that they've ever recorded, and where there's any potential for any violations of any amounts that you shouldn't buy more than. Like for us cannabis, medical cannabis patients, for instance, we can buy up to 24 ounces per day, because that's what our card will allow us to have at one time. Therefore, if I'm a card holder, which I am, of course, I've been one for going on 12 years now. And before I can go into say I need lots of oil for seizures. My wife needs lots of oil for headaches. She has a card too, so she makes her oil, I make my oil. We do our own thing. We make what do you call it? Concentrate, because we can't make an extract. But as long as we keep the heat under 180 degrees. And we do small amounts, and we're safe.
There's no danger of explosion with your production process. You use ethyl alcohol and to extract the cannabis and then evaporate that off.
Somebody will want to use something like 99% isopropyl because they want to get the higher THC rates, but it's probably safer to stick with the more digestible. And some people do that, but the point though made is that, for example, if a guy is dying of cancer all over his body and he needs 3 grams a day, it takes at least an ounce, probably up to around 2 ounces, to get that 3 grams a day, more like 4 grams a day. But see, if you're dying of cancer, you need 3 grams a day, and you can only get one
and
ounce
to
a
make
day. You're
3
screwed.
grams of extra concentrate from cannabis, you need like an ounce, about an ounce to get 3 grams, right?
Yeah, at least an ounce, Paul.
At least an ounce. So that's an ounce a day
So if
of buds or
right.
flowers.
So in other words, you got to get your sick bud up, and you got to go down to the store or get somebody to go down to the store.
And they're selling that stuff
every,
for $35 to $55 a gram
it's
in these
stores. It's a crime,
stores.
brother. It's a crime. The good stuff, yeah, the really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
And when I say the good stuff, this
And
is
a lot of stores don't have it.
Yeah, it's stuff that has not been tampered with by people trying to make more money and not caring about the quality of the oil. I've seen some oil come out of those stores. You know, I know there's some stores out there that have high integrity, and they do treat patients right, and they give them pure cannabis concentrate or extract, whatever the legal basis will allow. And there's no problem. Until recently, when the OLCC laid down this rule, they said, okay, because of some bad actors out there, because of a couple of bad actors and a couple of stores that were obviously conspiring with somebody to get up to, one case, I think, 4 or 5 pounds.
So they punished all 40,000 medical
That's right.
patients
Thank you.
for the actions of 2 or 3 people.
Without notifying the OHA, the Oregon Health Authority, without
didn't notify
notifying the
anybody.
OCC,
They did it arbitrarily.
without notifying any patients. And then one day a cancer patient's down trying to get his medicine, and they say, sorry, pal, you can't get any more, because the state says you can't have any more, because just too bad, you can't have any more.
Also, it's come to light in the past week that even though patients are guaranteed privacy under Oregon's medical marijuana law, every person that's able to look at the metric tracking system that's required of
It's all
medical
there.
it's all available. It's
all there.
all this private
Every bit of
patient
it.
information, the addresses, everything is listed in an open document.
Oh, where's the
that-
outrage?
Yeah,
Where's
well,
the
we're
outrage?
outraged, obviously.
We are outraged, but you know, we need to get on the phone, and we need to call people. We need to call our Congress and Senate. We need
Especially if you're in Oregon, call your
Please.
legislators and tell them
Please.
that this will not stand. We do have a studio audience here, so if you'd like to come in and see our show anytime live in person or go to our after show party, you are welcome. If you have anyone in your family, a loved one or a friend that need help finding a doctor, do not go to my old business that's run by this Israeli-Canadian oil company. If you have any of these conditions, we have a doctor referral service. We can help you anywhere in the country. Just call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. If you'd like more information about this corporate takeover, or more information about our organization, or you need to find a doctor who can help you qualify, get their signature so you can get a medical marijuana card anywhere in the United States, call us. That number on your screen, 503-235-4606. And we do have a studio audience member here at our off-screen microphone ready to make a statement. Welcome, Judy.
Hi.
Hey.
It was quite a meeting at OLCC with the full house and 3 members of the Oregon Cannabis Commission sitting around the round table for this meeting because they were not consulted, and they were there to confront and talk about
Anthony
to say
Taylor,
the least.
Dr. Rachel Knox, and who was the other
Yes.
one?
Someone
else.
I don't know him well.
I don't know.
Houlihan. Yes, and so the 3 of them. So it was very impressive. But the one thing that was pointed out very clearly, we all were got handouts of, or we could take the handouts of the statistics that they were using to base this decision on, to limit medical patients to this unbelievable amount, daily amount.
So about
that's
3 weeks after
inadequate.
they do it, they've got a handout to say,
Yeah.
this is our reasons.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Well,
make
it was
sense. I'd be
pointed
interested in
out-
seeing that. I haven't seen that.
It was pointed out very clearly by one incredibly succinct speaker, whose name I cannot tell you right now. His first name is Peter. He was
Peter
not an
Gendron,
OCC
probably.
member, but he was at the round table. The statistics were inadequate, number one, and absolutely could not be used to draw the conclusions that they drew. And as was pointed out, this was not so much a case of maybe a handful or one or two people that were buying and obtaining too much per day, but it was a dispensary problem.
Yeah.
It was a dispensary. It was a problem with the store should not be selling this. They did not. That this was not it was not the patients to not clamp down on the patients. It was to work with the dispensaries to improve compliance with our existing law, and it was pointed out repeatedly. There was no two ways around it. There was
So
no
what is, there's
avoiding.
another hearing coming up with the OLCC on just this subject on October 3rd, I believe it is, or October 4th in Eugene.
Yeah, it's extremely important that
So the
everybody that
OLCC
can-
didn't change that rule in that
Yeah,
meeting.
to come out. Yeah.
Tell them about that, Judy, because they have an opportunity to change it today. They had, and it was clear, and they made that very clear to the OCC who was around this round table. We were filled up the house behind there, and we were like the classic, what do you call it, the gallows, where, you know, except we had to quiet it down. They made these little cards, red for no, and, you know, green for yay, you know, red for boo. But, you know, we managed to succinctly, people would say stuff like when they would say really idiot stuff, we would say no, and we would catch them right there. And go ahead, Judy, I'm sorry.
Well, it was, I mean, the one thing that I certainly appreciated at the meeting was that even though the public was not given the opportunity to make any comments, although many of us came prepared to do so if we had the opportunity, they also, because we were well behaved, they allowed us these brief interjections. Now, they could have immediately said, anybody that, you know, we don't have time for this, there isn't time for public comment, you know, you have to leave the meeting if you can't be quiet. But they didn't do that. They did allow us, and I would have to say that I have never been more proud of a group of activists and people. It was quite an interesting array of people in the gallery, so to speak, and acting very much in unison. I felt by the time we got to the end of that meeting that the OLCC
But they didn't
people
change
that
the
were
rule.
there were being faced with a tremendous load of energy that we were putting out about this. It was quite unified and quite
Well, thanks for going to that.
But it
Thank
did
you,
not
too.
change it. It did not change it. They were going to vote today. Don't know what the outcome of that was, but they weren't going to, yeah.
That's the other thing I wanted to mention. They wanted to put it off until December. And there was a woman there who has leukemia, and she says, I don't have till December. I don't have to December, guys. I don't have to
How
December.
did they respond to that? They didn't say anything, I would bet.
One of them left the room. He was so angry. And he apologized when he came back.
I heard about
OLCC
that.
member. He was angry. He sat there, and then he walked out of the room like this, and he came back and, I'm sorry, I'm composed now.
All right, we do have a telephone caller waiting for us here.
I'm not kidding you. It was,
I know.
It was insane. It
Welcome
was
to the
insane.
show, caller.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I have a question, obviously.
Okay.
My question is the plants are budding really, really well right now. And it occurred to me it might be a good idea for both, you know, less area for it to mold, and if you took off all the bigger leaves, what we call sun leaves,
Yes.
even if they're not yellow, all the way, you know, to the stalks, would the buds grow bigger?
No.
You know, would it be
No.
better?
No. If
No?
they are not getting sun, if they're on the lower part of the plant, if they're shaded, those leaves, and are the interior underneath the buds, then you should take them off. What happens is the plant, there are mobile nutrients and immobile nutrients, and nitrogen being one of the main ones, but there are other mobile nutrients. So what happens is the plant pulls the mobile nutrients out of the leaf and uses it for the flowers. So if you take the leaves off, obviously the plant can't pull those nutrients out and use it for the flowers. So you want the plant to be able to use those mobile nutrients, and it will metabolize them and use them for flower production. So you can remove them on the interior part of the plant, any place that looks like there might be mold, or and definitely pull off any leaves that have turned crispy or brown. But as long as they're still alive and show a little bit of yellow and all of that, the plant is still pulling the nutrients out.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I was going to say, Paul, that's exactly what we do. We sometimes remove lots and lots and lots of leaves so that when it gets done, you can tell, you can start seeing this space in between, but there's always that big fluff of leaves up near the buds and all around, because that's where they need those leaves you're talking about. But those ones that grow at the bottom of where the buds begin to grow,
they're shaded.
Yeah, they're shaded, and sometimes they get a little powdery mildew on them, and you don't want those contaminating the rest of your stuff, but you don't want to overkill either.
Right. Okay. Well, I was making those. I had that logic of, oh man, this is going to make the biggest, fattest buds ever, you know.
Yeah.
So okay, all right.
It's maybe break the stem, not break it all the way, just break it a little bit, and that will increase flower production.
Super cropping.
Oh wow.
But don't break the stem entirely, just crack it.
Bend it so that
it
it's
will
harmed.
Increase the flower production a little bit. Thank you for your call. Good question.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
We have a video now talking about industrial hemp. This is a hemp panel at the Seattle Hemp Fest, which took place just about a month ago. First of all, we have Dave Sieber, who is a longtime hemp activist. I've known him for about 30 years. He helped produce medium fiber density board with the University of Washington back in the early 1990s. But he's come out with a product, Hemp Shield, which is like a shellac that coats wood. And so it's a hemp oil product for construction to stain wood. So he's there first, and then Joy Beckerman is on along with Chris Conrad. So we'll play a few minutes of this hemp panel from the Seattle Hemp Fest. We'll be right back.
To develop all sorts of uses for hemp that really have nothing to do with the cannabinoids in the way that they're understood now. I'm not saying that I don't use them. In fact, I also want to announce that for the second time, I've been pronounced cancer-free using RSO. So I'm not saying I'm not for it. What I'm saying is there's all these other things that it can do. The 8-hound Jack was right. The 800-pound gorilla still is sitting in the back of the room. I've got all these inventions. I'm trying to work with one of my trusted friends up here to finally get this out so that we can show how many ways this is going to come and really permeate everything once we give up the greed trip behind the cannabinoid bubble, which is what I call it. So I thank you.
All right, thanks, Dave. And the other thing I want to mention about Dave is that he worked with Bill Condi, and they put together the first hemp press board that I think I saw.
Medium density fiber board.
Yeah, there we go.
MDF.
And the person who's interjecting right now is the next person there. That's exactly what I'd like to hear. Joy Beckerman. I don't remember how long I've known Joy, but it seems like a long time. But she's on the, whereas Donnie was one of the first board members of the Hemp Industries Association, she's on the current board. And we got to spend a lot of time frolicking through the hemp fields in Kentucky with her last year. And she's also to Health and Beauty Aids and helped to move that project forward, and is a fountain of information. So I'll let the fountain flow forth. Joy Beckerman.
Thank you. And Chris, who is a tremendous hero and pioneer, as I sit up here with so many, edited actually The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which has had such a huge effect. That was the revolution, which I discovered on Grateful Dead Tour, this traveling fountain of knowledge and information that went around the country and the world, and that information was spread through those channels and very much changed my life and the trajectory of my life. But Chris was the first president of the Hemp Industries Association, which was formed in 1994. I am the current president of the Hemp Industries Association. The HIA is dedicated to low THC varieties of cannabis, originally just oil seed and fiber. So it's a very interesting conversation to have. We specifically were founded, I'm sure that Don and Chris remember, for oil seed and fiber purposes. So when we talk about industrial hemp, we're talking about human and animal nutrition, the highest, most digestible form of protein on the planet, in the plant and animal kingdom, and obviously perfect ratio of omega-3s and 6, and a source for long chain essential fatty acids that don't exist anywhere. But body care, nutraceuticals, paper, textiles, building materials, biocomposites, industrial sealants and coatings, hemp shield, nanotechnology, biomedical applications. You know, it affects so many areas, and we were not concerned with extracts and cannabinoids when we founded, and it sort of came at us like a ton of bricks, the HIA and the hemp industries about 5 years ago, as this idea of hemp extracts started to become a thing. And while it has caused some contention in the founding of the HIA, which was really developed to sort of prove we were not going to divert into the drug world, we knew we needed to advance this mission to get through this ridiculous law and regulation evolution that we're in. And I can't wait till that's over, till we are regulated or just decriminalized or descheduled entirely as one plant. But that's why the HIA was formed for oil, seed, and fiber. We have essentially also embraced extracts. We have sued the DEA 4 times. Twice we have won. One, our hemp, yes. One was our hemp extract case, which is very recent, very relevant to this rapidly developing area of law and regulation, where even at the federal level, it's really the feds versus the feds. So when we hear this, is CBD legal in all 50 states? And by the way, the answer is a resounding no, despite everything that you see on the web. In any event, we came up against this lawsuit for hemp extracts. We got a very mixed ruling on that, an unpublished opinion, which we may be able to discuss further on this panel, where hemp cannabinoids or CBD that are sourced from hemp grown under a Farm Bill compliant program, and we have 42 states right now that have passed some form of legislation that there might be an exception to those that CBD, but that otherwise the court agreed with the DEA's position that CBD is indeed a Schedule I controlled substance, as any extract from any part of the genus cannabis. However, a directive came out in May of this year, after that ruling that said, well, the DEA said, hey, the mere presence of cannabinoids in the substance does not necessarily render it a controlled substance. What matters is the part of the plant that it came from, and keep in mind that the DEA is not so into the Farm Bill, which is the research aspect of hemp's definition of industrial hemp. They're really only concerned with the Controlled Substances Act definition of marijuana, which applies an exception to hemp based on the part of the cannabis plant that it is. So the DEA is still maintaining, hey, if you're getting your extracts from the non-exempt parts of the plant, meaning the mature stalk or the seed, which, by the way, are not even kind of significant sources of cannabinoids, fine. But if you're getting your cannabinoids from the non-exempt parts of the plant, the flowering tops and the leaves and resins, which the DEA is pretty sure that's where we get them from, because we do, that's still a controlled substance. So we got a mixed review there, and then we just reached a settlement in our 4th case against them, which resulted in this directive where they were still trying to put forth bad information to departments of ag and others that oil pressed from the hemp seed and sterilized hemp seeds, which we eat for grain as such a nutrient-dense option, were in fact Schedule I controlled substances. So we continue to fight that fight. I want to report for you that in 2016, under these research programs, 11 states grew. We grew 9,770 acres of hemp in this country legally in 2016. In 2017, we went up to 25,970 acres. We more than doubled. This year, in 2018, we're scheduled for over 50,000 acres of legal hemp in the United States. There's a lot of work to do in the Washington bill. Washington program does not allow for extraction of hemp. That's important for you folks to know, as many other states do. And lastly, an action call, major. If I can get folks to go to hempsupporter.com, that's hempsupporter.com, and click on the resources tab. The Farm Bill, which is renewed every 5 years, this year includes language that would legalize hemp as an agricultural commodity, free for federal crop insurance, and remove it from the Controlled Substances Act. But we need the conferees, the House Senate conferees that are trying to synchronize that bill right now, to know that we must include the current hemp provisions from the Senate version into the final bill, where the House and the Senate have to agree. And you can go to hempsupporter.com, hit the resources tab to make your voices heard. They're very important, guys. I've been saying in 5 more years since 1990, but it's on the horizon. It can happen.
All right, Joy. I'd like to hear that positivity. And also with the hemp farm bill coming up here this year, it's sponsored by Mitch McConnell, who is the Senate Majority Leader, and at the same time, the Senate Minority Leader is pushing for a bill to take all marijuana off the controlled substances list. So if we get both of those, we're really going to be in a much better shape than we've been for some time. Let's go a little bit to this other question, though, because we're missing a panelist here. She was going to be taught, her name is, I forgot her first name, Bosch. Okay, Deb Bosch. And so she was going to talk about hemp housing, and this is something I think is really important because of the fact that it covers a couple of things. The first off is that if you use hemp housing in the form of hempcrete, you can produce this material that is basically fire resistant, mildew resistant, super insulative, extremely lightweight, pest resistant, hundreds of additional values over a lot of other things. It's much lighter weight. In an earthquake, it can crack without breaking. If it falls on you, it doesn't hurt as bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they're building this demonstration house that's just beautiful. If you get a chance to look, it's a Highland Hemp House. Look it up online. So we talked to a big extent about the industrial aspect. We're also talking about this cannabinoid aspect of it. And like we have a situation in California where the federal law seems to say you have to get the CBD from the stalk of the plant or the non-marijuana parts of the plant. But California law says that in order to be edible, it has to be grown from the marijuana parts of the plant. So we have this kind of a conflict between these two. So I'm just wondering, in terms of the panel, how do you see things moving right now? Is it just a matter of breaking the DEA and the rest of it's going to come apart? Or are we going to run to these other situations? They have this conflict at the local level. And one other thing I want to throw in there is that in California we're having this question between people that want to grow hemp and the people who want to grow marijuana. They don't want to be growing near each other for various reasons. So if you can talk about those kind of issues. Yeah, okay, so Joy, you look like you have something to start with, and so then why don't we work our way back across and everybody get a shot at that.
Oh, sure, okay. I teach continuing legal education seminars called The Curious Legal Status of CBD and Hemp-Derived Cannabinoids. And they take an hour and a half, so we will only be touching upon very briefly here. And I know Donnie probably has some very interesting things to say there. It's very gray, and I demonstrate that oftentimes by saying, hey, Walmart.com, today as we sit, we can get about 47 different hemp-derived CBD products on Walmart.com, no problem. Go to Target.com, you can buy a book on hemp CBD. So it's comfort levels of risk. There is no bright line here, and we are dealing with state law. We're dealing with how that marries with federal law, because unlike marijuana, there is federal law under this research component of the Farm Bill of 2014, Section 7606, the legitimacy of industrial hemp research. So we have this federal law that does not always comport with state law. I think the most visual way, or the greatest example I can give you as the kind of confusion that we're dealing with is what's happening in New York State. After 19 years in Washington, I moved back to New York, where we have a tremendous hemp program. We can extract all of those things. We had our first hemp-derived CBD arrest in the state of New York, even though, keep in mind, we have a hemp research program. We were the top #4 producer last year. We're allowed to process and extract CBD and sell it under a free registration in New York right now. But in February, we had our first hemp-derived CBD arrest. And I got a call as an expert witness. My company is Hemp Base International, and I do expert witness work. I got a call from the supplier of that material, which is a Farm Bill compliant industrial hemp licensed grower in the state of Colorado.
Hey, well, we're down to just about 4 minutes and 20 seconds left of the show. You wanted to say a few things here, John?
Yes, sir. One last thing before I go over there. The question kept coming up at the OLCC meeting, and by the way, thank you, God bless you, OCC, Anthony,
the Oregon
Peter,
Cannabis
Oregon
Commission,
Cannabis
a
Commission.
newly formed
we asked
advisory body.
Yes, sir. We asked over and over again, where's the harm? Please tell us, where's the harm? Where's the harm in letting people have a pound a day or 3 pounds a day? Please, where's the harm? They couldn't tell us.
And then you wanted to talk about the temperature.
Oh, the temperature. Yeah. By the way, just for clarity, for someone choosing to make and concentrate. Yeah, we have to
extracts.
we have to be very careful. First of all, we don't make extracts; we make concentrates, and you need to check.
Basically, the difference is extracts can blow up. Yeah. Concentrates cannot blow up.
Right. And also, I think they're just generally a lot more safer to produce.
But the temperature is actually 250 degrees.
Not
as long
more
as
than. Not more than.
Yeah,
so
not
you
more
have to
than
you have to
250
be-
degrees.
Yeah.
So we are just about done with the show here. I want to thank you guys for watching. Remember that we'll be on again next week right here. If you have any questions or comments, you can call us at 503-235-4606. That's 503-235-4606. That's our office number. You can leave a message there 24/7. We'll get back to you by Monday at the latest if you're calling in right now, but maybe sooner. And if you need help finding a doctor who can help you get a medical marijuana referral, we've had a referral service going back for the 20 years that medical marijuana has been legal here in Oregon. You can call us again at that number, 503-235-4606. If you have any conditions that you think might qualify for medical marijuana, or you have any questions about industrial hemp or adult use of marijuana, call us at that number, 503-235-4606. I want to thank you guys for watching. We'll be back next week. John Cornett is about ready to play another song for you. So help us restore hemp. Good night.
Some folks like tomatoes, some like rhubarb pie. I like when my vegetables get me a little high. May not be for everyone, may not fit your needs, but this incredible edible vegetable is more than just a weed. Edible, edible, vegetable. Use our weed for medicine. Sometimes we do get high. This vegetable can heal disease, folks. It's the truth we can't deny. It may not be for everyone, may not fit